Before I get started, just a quick anecdote. A few years ago, I was riding my bicycle on the way to do some maths tutoring at a girls' college. A police car suddenly swung around the corner and pulled up across the street. Two police officers jumped out and started yelling at me to get down on the ground, which I did. There were a few things going through my head at the time. One, this was clearly a case of mistaken identity. They must have been given a description, and I matched that description. And two, I should do everything the police tell me. They don't know who I am, so they have to assume I'm the suspect. Another police car arrived. They were questioning me. I told them I was a maths tutor. I let them search my bag, in which they found a calculator, a textbook, and a notepad with maths written on it. They quickly realised I was the wrong guy and raced back to their vehicles. The female officer just said, "Sorry mate, you matched the description," as she raced off. People had come out of their houses to see what was going on, to see me sprawled out on the grass with the contents of my backpack scattered around me. No harm done. I understood the circumstances and continued on my way. However, the same cannot be said for a recent incident in Australia's capital, Canberra. Thank you to the viewer who sent this in. According to an ACT policing media release, teen charged following Woden incidents from 12th of November 2025. A 15-year-old boy has been charged following an armed robbery and multiple attempted carjackings in Woden. Police allege the teenager entered a store in the Westfield Woden Shopping Centre and used an item to break a display case and steal phones. A short time later, the boy allegedly attempted to steal 3 vehicles at knifepoint, injuring one woman and throwing another man out of his car in the process. The release also notes, police stopped a Transport Canberra bus after receiving information that the teenager was on board, but he was not able to be located. The 15-year-old boy was subsequently caught, with officers seizing 4 stolen phones. He was charged with 3 counts of attempted aggravated robbery and 1 count each of intentionally wounding, common assault, and possessing a knife without a reasonable excuse. In a subsequent update on 20th of November, ACT Policing wrote, "At the same time, police had received reports there had been multiple attempted carjackings in the area, with a young person allegedly threatening members of the public with a knife. One of the occupants of a vehicle received lacerations to their hand during the attempted carjacking. During the response, information was received by police that a young person matching the physical and clothing description of the alleged offender was on a bus. That bus was stopped, and a young person was detained for a short period until it was confirmed he was not the alleged offender." Well, as it turns out, the boy who was pulled from the bus and detained was an Aboriginal teen. Note, the charged suspect was also of Aboriginal appearance. Anyway, unlike my incident, where I just went about my day, as this case involved an Aboriginal boy being detained, the predictable media firestorm ensued. The ABC, always the race baiter, reported, "Aboriginal teen mistakenly pulled from bus at gunpoint after racial profiling." The Guardian wasn't much better, reporting, "ACT police accused of racial profiling for allegedly pulling guns on Indigenous teenager after mistaking him for a suspect." To be fair to the police, they were after an active armed offender in a densely populated part of the city. I'm pretty sure if the suspect looked like King Charles III, they probably would have done the same thing. I doubt they cared about the suspect's race. They were probably more concerned with him actively carrying a weapon and prepared to use it. And what would happen if the opposite happened? What if the police decided not to detain the Aboriginal teenager because they were afraid of being labelled racist? And then it turns out it was the actual suspect who goes on to attack the bus passengers in Canberra's worst mass stabbing. Would the public be forgiving of the police in that situation? Of course not. In fact, it would be racist of the police not to act in this case, choosing not to detain someone who matches the description because of fears of a political backlash. That would be horrible policing, and not a society that I'd like to live in. The ABC was all over this story, of course. Unfortunately, modern Australia has a terrible habit. Whenever something bad happens to an Aboriginal person, it must be racism. There can't be any other possible explanation. According to the article, the boy's family said officers did not ask for the boy's name nor request identification before forcing him off the bus and putting him on the ground, handcuffed and face down. Police then compared a photo on their phone with the boy and declared they had the wrong person before removing the handcuffs and apologising. Of course, the family demanded action. They said, "What happened was not a mistake. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a gross violation of a child's human rights. You terrorised an innocent child. Your officers pointed a gun at him. Your officers dragged him off a bus. Your officers slammed him onto the ground. Your officers pinned him down with their knees. And even after realising they had the wrong boy, they still searched him, a terrified child who kept saying, 'I didn't do anything.' That is not policing. That is abuse." Could they be any more dramatic? It should be noted the child in question is 17 years old. As expected, the police defended their actions, although they were guilted into an apology. In their press release, they said, "We acknowledge this would have been a very distressing incident for the young person and the other passengers on the bus, and we apologise for this. Given police were responding to multiple eyewitness reports of an active armed offender in a heavily populated part of Canberra, officers acted with the immediate aim of preventing a worst-case scenario from occurring, further harm to members of the public." And that's fair enough. As I said, nobody would have wanted the opposite to happen. The police even went to meet the boy, his family, and the local First Nations community. Remember, nobody died here. Somebody was temporarily detained and then released, and this has become a national headline: the great national crisis of a momentary inconvenience.